What's up, guys? Welcome back to the All Love, All Hate Fantasy Football Podcast. This is episode 12. Glad to have y'all back. As always, I'm your host, Jacob Reeder, with Christopher Langley and Payton Hedrick, and we're going to get straight into weekly words.
All right, so to begin weekly words, a lot of news happened in the last few days, perhaps no bigger, though, than the large amount of positive COVID tests that have basically taken over the league. And I think no team has been afflicted more with this than the Cleveland Browns. They are now without Baker Mayfield and their head coach, both tested positive. And Mayfield and head coach Stefanski is now joining Austin Hooper, Jarvis Landry, and 4 others who also might be missing from Saturday. In fact, they might be inactive at this point. I'm not 100% sure. I'll have to double check on that later. And this is a big, big blow because they actually play Saturday afternoon. There are 2 Saturday games going on. So they have one less day to prepare for a matchup this weekend. So this is a big, big, big issue going on with the Cleveland Browns. And they also may be without Kareem Hunt, who got re-injured in last week's matchup. It's been really, really bad week for the Cleveland Browns. And the only hope is that they just can continue to hopefully things get better soon, because you don't like seeing any team like this. And like I said, a lot of other players are testing positive. I mean, a very big name, though, that did test positive is Odell Beckham Jr., who is with the Los Angeles Rams. He's actually starting to come to form really nice with the Rams. He's starting to return to like that Pro Bowl form we all saw with the Giants. But now that he's tested positive, he may also be gone for this upcoming game as well. Just a lot of positive cases going on, like I said. And the main hope here is just that hopefully it starts dying down soon, because you don't like seeing this, especially near the tail end of the season. In other news going on, we had some more injuries happen this week. Lamar Jackson sprained his ankle and is considered day-to-day. Obviously a very, very key injury going on. I mean, the Ravens are still in the playoff hunt. And without Lamar, they may not even be able to make the playoffs. I mean, they looked all right last week with Huntley in as their backup, and they did do all right. But obviously, Lamar is former MVP, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. You need him back as soon as possible in order to keep your playoff hopes alive. But we'll have to keep monitoring his status as the week progresses. That's it from me. What do you guys have for this week?
So I'm going to get into another injury, and that's with wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins. He suffered an injury. I mean, it was right at the end of that game. What was that, Monday? Yeah, Monday night. So he will likely not be seen for the rest of the regular season. So that means he is basically out for the rest of the fantasy season this year with a sprained knee. You could barely see it at the very end of that game because it was a tough game, but you could see him limping off the field, and you had to assume that it was not going to be very good. You didn't see him in that last little drive they got after that onside kick. But as we conclude, that's a sprained knee, and I'm not sure if they really have a timeline, but for fantasy sake, he will not be back. What else? Also, with the Cardinals, we saw James Conner get a little banged up last week, and I think he'll probably be fine, good to go this week. I mean, they do play the Lions, so they may not push him to get back, since they do get Chase Edmonds back this week, and they have Benjamin, which probably like the best third string in the league. I'm just messing around, but I believe they do also have Benjamin active. But they should be fine in their running back room. They may not have all 3 guys. They may have 2 of the 3. And, I mean, it's the Lions. They really got nothing to worry about. We saw Austin Eckler get banged up, but he should be active for this week's game. He practiced today, I believe, Wednesday. So he should be good to go. They have a pretty tough matchup this week playing against Kansas City. So they're probably going to do anything they possibly can to get him active and get him ready.
They also play tomorrow. So like they need him back as soon as possible. That's why it's very key that like he was practicing today.
Yeah, that's true. I don't see any notes on whether he was a full participant or if he was non-contact, but he was out there at practice. Other news, kind of getting away from the fantasy side of things for a second here. Our dear friend Urban Meyer, one of the best coaches in the NFL, in my personal opinion, no controversy at all. We've had some more news come out about him. I'll just keep it pretty simple. Apparently, he doesn't really like kickers, especially ones that don't make their kicks. And whenever he catches a glimpse of one stretching, he may just give him a little pep talk and say, "Hey, here's a little kick in the rear end, and go make your kicks." But that's basically all I got. What about you, Jacob?
Yeah, it's an interesting way of handling pepping up your kickers, but we'll just have to wait and see, and maybe Josh Lambo will make some more this weekend.
Josh
But yeah,
Lambo is actually no longer on the team too. Said he was a
oh,
former
wow.
kicker. So
Wow, so it won't even help in the
I mean,
future.
with that pep talk, how could you not make any more kicks? Like, you don't have to worry about your leg hurting because your coach just stepped on your leg while you were stretching. But I mean, that's the best type of encouragement, right? Isn't that how they do it in like little leagues now? They like give you a little kick in the butt and they're like, "Hey, go out there and be awesome, kid."
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Some more guys who are going to need encouragement. Uh, Terry McLaurin suffered a concussion during this weekend's game. He did not practice Wednesday, so we'll have to wait and see if he clears protocol. It's not looking great right now. Some other guys, Adam Humphries, what's your guy, Payton, DeAndre Carter, I believe. Guys you could look for to replace McLaurin on your fantasy lineup if need be. Elijah Mitchell, I believe he didn't play this past week, correct? Jeff Wilson was a starter.
yeah.
Yeah, he's dealing with his knee and a concussion still, so we'll have to wait and see on him. He did not
Just to
practice
interrupt you right there, Jeff
Wednesday.
Wilson was hardly a starter in that game. Jeff Wilson,
That's all right.
it's hard to say this because I'm a Jeff Wilson stan. He's been sitting on the taxi squad for a while now, just waiting for his chance to shine in the running back 2 or even flex position for my team. And I've been waiting on it too, been wanting to start him because he's a real running back and he's been in the situation where a real backup running back should get a chance and have a good game. But, we're using our Swiss Army knives now and bringing wide receivers into the backfield and doing that stupidness.
That's all right. Debo Samuel's a good player.
It's the Cordero Patterson effect. What can we say?
Debo Samuel is a great wide receiver.
A great wide receiver that can run the football. I'll agree. Some more guys. Melvin Gordon is dealing with a hand injury. He'll most likely play, but just keep an eye on him. And if not, Javonte Williams is a full go, just like a couple weeks ago. Both him and Javonte actually played really extremely well this past weekend for fantasy. Leonard Fournette, who's looked great all season, is dealing with an ankle injury, did not practice on Wednesday, so just keep an eye on him. It looks like he'll probably go, but you'll just have to watch. And DeAndre Swift with a shoulder injury still didn't practice today, which is Wednesday, so just keep an eye on that. It doesn't look great that he will play this week, and I've heard some rumors that he may be going to IR. Just got to decide the Lions do what they're going to do, and do they really need to play him even though they're out of the playoffs already, and would they risk doing that, and is that a great idea?
So the DeAndre Swift situation is kind of funny because they say you hear rumors that he is a possible candidate for IR, and then the head coach comes out the next day and says they're hopeful for his return this weekend. So I honestly, I don't know what to say about DeAndre Swift, but like Jacob was saying, it might just be worth it. Like, you have one win. Like, just let him like rest a little bit. I mean, his shoulder, his ankle, his back, everything's got to hurt because I mean he's been carrying the weight of that whole team for this entire season, for this horrible season that they've been having, that they're giving it his all, making his – I mean, you could argue and say that he had a pretty good season, but with that becomes a broken back for carrying the weight of that entire city.
Think about it, like rehabbing back to try to play this next week and rehabbing back just to worry about next season are completely two different things and two different timelines. So just
And
he's going to –
they got a tough matchup too. I mean, they're playing the Cardinals. Like, I'm not saying that by any means any team at any point in a season should, throw the towel in and say, oh, here's your win. But, like, you got to be realistic at the end of the day.
Yeah. Another interesting situation with the Buccaneers is the Antonio Brown situation. So he's been hurt for a while and then also got suspended for, I believe, 3 games for showing a fake COVID vaccination card with another player on their team. I'm not sure who that was, but
it was their safety, Mike Edwards, and a free agent who used to be on the Bucs, a wide receiver named John Franklin.
Yeah. So with those two guys, Antonio Brown obviously being the more popular name. Today, I believe Bruce Arians was asked about his situation, whether to keep or release him, which is pretty crazy considering he's been pretty good for the team for the first half of the season when he did play. And Bruce Arians, quote, said, "It could go either way right now. It really could. So we'll have to wait and see. For dynasty managers, Antonio Brown, you could be getting another just crazy situation with him. I say you just hold him and see what happens. But if you're a win now team, you probably won't have Antonio Brown back for this season." That's about it going on in the league right now. Langley, you had one quick note to end us off.
Yeah, for sure. And before I get to that, though, just to make note of the DeAndre Swift case, I wouldn't compare it. Like, I know some people could compare it to this, but I wouldn't compare it to what the Vikings did with Dalvin Cook, where they let him come back quickly, because the Vikings are definitely still in the playoff hunt, while the Lions at this point, if the season's over, like if they haven't been eliminated from the playoffs yet,
I think they just were this week.
Yeah, they just were. So at this point, all you're playing for is really just to finish the season on a high note. If I'm them, I would just rest him. I mean, this is a second year back. He's looked really good in most games he's played in. This is definitely a guy who could be part of your team's future. If I'm the Lions, I just let him rest, get him prepared for next season. But to close off, just real quick.
One guy for the Lions this past weekend, they pulled him up off the practice squad. I heard it on Adam Schefter talking on Fantasy Football Now. Craig Reynolds got the majority of the work for the Lions, and he scored 10 fantasy points, I believe. So if you need a guy to plug in, if you have DeAndre Swift or something like that, Craig Reynolds might be your guy, with Jamal Williams, still worrying about COVID protocols.
Yeah.
Just check those out.
Yeah, definitely keep an eye on the waiver wire this week, with a lot of players testing positive and a lot of other players being out due to either the positives, positive tests, close contacts, or just any other injury that might be going on. It's definitely keep an eye on. I mean, playoffs have started in most leagues. I know some leagues go all the way to week 18, but the rest will go to week 17. So playoffs are officially beginning. So definitely keep an eye on the waiver wire. You don't know. You'd be surprised what you could find. I found Rashad Penny this past week. He got me 25 plus points. So granted, I'm out of the playoffs, so it wouldn't really matter, but that's besides the point. But to close off, like Jacob said, something that I thought was a pretty cool thing to note. This is the third time since 1978 where no team clinched a playoff berth since like by week 14, or at least like with 4 weeks left in the regular season. I thought that was pretty unique. I mean, 3 times in almost a half century. Goes to show really how competitive the season has been. And despite all the injuries that have occurred, I mean, the season has had its ups and downs. Still been very entertaining to watch. And the playoff picture is still wide open. I'm very curious to see who makes it in and who will not make it in. But that will conclude this weekly words. A lot of news went around this week, we understand. But we will now get into our next segment, which is Girl Talk.
We're going to get into Girl Talk. So this is going to be the first week of the fantasy football playoffs. It's a big week. Hope everybody, got in, is ready for this stretch of competitive games and get to hopefully the championship. And if you are in a league where there's some money on the line, hopefully you win that money. But anyway, we're going to get into some of our matchups coming up this week in our playoffs. And the first matchup this week will be Trey versus me. Another matchup will be the NOLA Naked Nutria versus Jacob and the Painted Dogs. And the third matchup is going to be the Boa Constrictors versus Sean's Sleepyheads. And then we also got Ashton with the number 1 seed, so he is going to be getting a bye this week. But also, before we get into our playoffs, let's just take a brief second to take a look on the Big Pattersons, RBU, who managed to do the unthinkable. He managed to drop from 5th place going into this last week to 8th place all the way out of the playoffs, and a proposed plan that, was his own. So any other way we would have tried ranking this year and dealing with bye weeks and things like that, probably would have gotten in, but his proposed idea got him out, and that was all thanks to DeAndre Hopkins playing just barely enough. Like literally the last catch is what put him over the point total for the Naked Nutria to be able to put down RB Who. So now with that being said, we're going to get into these matchups. First matchup is going to be myself versus RB2 University, who really, argument for RB1 University, considering he is the RBU that is in the playoffs. That's also a joke because if we're going to get into RBU, I would say the Painted Dogs definitely has the strongest running back core. And with the way that some of his running backs have been playing recently, even the guys that aren't starters, I don't think there's any argument there for his running back room. But so we'll get into me versus Trey. This is going to be what I think is the closest game. It's going to be a pretty much shootout, and it could go either way. That's all I can really say on this matchup because it is my own. I'm not going to say I'm going to win. I'm not going to say I'm going to lose. It's going to be a shootout, and we even have some guys in the same game. So it's going to be really interesting to watch and seeing some of our guys basically playing each other in real life for a playoff spot in real life in the NFL, and us kind of duking it out in the fantasy playoffs. So it'll be interesting. I wish the best of luck to them. I wish the best of luck to everyone in the playoffs. But what do you guys say on this matchup?
Yeah, I think Trey's team is interesting because he almost has the most difficult lineup decisions, it seems, over the past few weeks, just with him having all the backup running backs and such, and injuries happening, and Dalvin Cook not playing, and he doesn't have Alexander Madison either. So it's just trying to throw people in there, but he should be healthy this week. So whether he decides, Dalvin Cook's obvious start, but Saquon Barkley, I don't think he's been playing too hot. Does he throw in a Jamal Williams if he's a starter this week? Does he throw in Chuba Hubbard this week instead? That's going to come down to the last second. He's going to have to decide what he wants to do with that. And I think that'll ultimately decide the outcome. And Payton's just got to put up his normal average points, and he should be good unless he gets a huge game from Cook or Saquon Barkley like I'm talking about. He also doesn't have Lamar Jackson. So
yeah, I just want to add that Lamar Jackson is definitely hard because even if he plays, you kind of wish you, as a Lamar Jackson fantasy manager, I think myself, I would kind of rather just hearing that he's out and going with that backup, because if he is playing, you're going to want to put him in, and I could see a chance for disappointment there because, one tweak of that ankle and he could, be out the rest of the game. So that's an interesting person to watch this week, especially. So pay attention to his practices. But you brought up how hard it is for him to choose a starting lineup. And it's funny that this week is probably going to be harder than anyone he's seen the last few weeks because this is the healthiest his team has been. So it's definitely going to be interesting.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree. This is gonna easily be the closest matchup this week. I have the teams pulled up right here on the side, and just to make note of something. I know Lamar's out. Like Lamar may be out this week, and that's something to watch out for. But another guy who might, he was limited today. I just checked it on the app. Josh Allen, Payton's quarterback, also got injured this past game. So that's definitely something to watch out for too, because I mean, Josh Allen is the number 1 ranked fantasy quarterback right now. And he's been the hero of Payton's team for a few weeks this season, especially when Payton was dealing with the injury bug where like most of his starting lineup was out. So in terms of Trey's team, I don't think he's going to have that hard of a like decision to start people. The only thing I'd watch out for maybe is Saquon. Although Saquon did have a good week this past week, he got 17 points. I would say maybe the only ones that could be a questionable start on offense are Chase Claypool and Brandon Cooks. However, Claypool is playing the Titans, who have the second worst passing defense, according to wide receivers for fantasy. And Brandon Cooks is playing Jacksonville. Take that as you will.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I do want to add, do you guys, this is just personal opinion, do you think that Chase Claypool, do you think he gets treated in the lineup a little bit differently this week with some of his actions on the field last week? I mean, we saw at the very end of the game where they could have well had an extra play and possibly gone down and scored and like really changed that entire game. And he's, dancing that he just got a first down with 12 seconds left and he's yelling at his linemen, and it just seemed very childish and unprofessional, really. Do you think that maybe we see a change in like not necessarily plays on the field, but maybe good routes ran and targets? Because like I'm sure Big Ben recognizes this, and it's like, dude, I don't want to throw to this kid if he like is going to cost me a game, in clutch situations.
Man, I think definitely the Steelers, I feel like are one of those teams that just don't really care about players doing on the field antics. I mean, we saw all last year Juju doing the dances on the logos, and that ended up ending pretty badly for the Steelers. They went 11-0 and then proceeded to lose in the opening round. And in regards to like Claypool, I mean, this is the same dude who went on social media last year and boasted about making a 4th-string corner flinch on a route that he ran. A 4th-stringer, not a starting corner, but like a 4th-string defensive back. So like this doesn't surprise me in the slightest with Claypool. This is the same dude who I'm pretty sure tweeted last year, losing, never heard of her, when the Steelers were like 8-0, 9-0, or at least they were still undefeated for quite a stretch. But I mean, if I'm the Steelers, you got to keep him in, because even though he may have antics on the field, he still is one of your best players on that offense. And right now, the Steelers are still on the outside looking in. At this point, they need to win as many games as possible to even have a chance to make the playoffs. So, as much as like people should say, "Oh, we shouldn't throw to him," I just see the Steelers having no option. But that's just my take on it.
Yeah, so I think that's going to bring us into our next matchup, which is the NOLA Naked Nutria versus the Painted Dogs, Painted Dogs being Jacob's team. This is also, surprisingly enough, could be a pretty close matchup. I mean, we saw these two battle it out not too long ago, that it was decided in less than 2 points, I think, if not a point even.
It was Javonte Williams' performance that he got like 27 points that put Jacob over the edge by like 1 or 2 points.
Yeah, so this one, it could be close as well. I just think that it's really going to come down to, I mean, Amani's got Fournette, and he's been playing really well recently. If he keeps that up, that's the only way she's in this game. And obviously her other players will have to play well, like Aaron Rodgers. But she will be missing DeAndre Hopkins, which will cause a little bit of a cloudy area on who to start in that very last roster spot, being like her last flex spot. I mean, she does have 2 great tight ends, but I mean, they really haven't been doing a whole lot recently. So that's going to be a very tough game. I
Can I
just don't.
interject real quick? I just noticed
Yeah.
this on her bench. She does have Jalen Waddle on her bench. He should easily be able to fit right in for.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I forgot about that. Was he was out for a couple of weeks, was he not?
No, but he was on
No,
bye this past week. So that's
okay, so he was on bye. That's why that's probably how Michael Gallup found his way into that flex spot. So yeah, I really didn't even realize that. I didn't remember she had Waddle, but he'll be taking D Hop's spot, and it should be a close one. But I think really all Jacobs got to do is running backs just have to have their average games. They got to just go out there and perform. If any of Jacobs, 3 starting running backs he's got on his roster, I think if any, or four starting running backs on his roster, if any combination of those have a bad game, then I could see Amani squeaking out a win. But if they go out there and do what they're supposed to, I think Jacobs got this and moves on to round 2. What about y'all?
Yeah, I have to agree. I think this will be definitely a win for Jacob. It's funny you mentioned he has 4 running backs. In reality, sadly, he has 5 because at this point I have to consider Debo a running back, as much as that does seem like an oxymoron. But I mean, yeah, his team is pretty good. The only question on his lineup is the tight end position, but that's because he had 3 tight ends that all ended up on IR this year. First, Irv Smith, then Robert Tonyan, and then Dan Arnold. So now he's starting Zach Ertz, who actually had a pretty good week last week, with all things considered. It was Ertz's performance that actually got Jacob over the top against me in the season finale, so Jacob would win. But yeah, I think he'll do well. Honestly, Amani needs every player on her team to at least show up and play really well if she wants to have a chance. But if one of Jacob's players doesn't do too good, I mean, Antonio Gibson did have a bad week this past week, and we'll let Jacob get into that in a little bit because I know that's something he's wanted to talk about for a little bit. I think this should be Jacob's game to win. It just really comes down to if his team can't show up or if Amani's team just blows past their projected big time. Jacob, what do you think?
Well, just one more thing. You brought up Jacob having Zach Ertz. Sorry, I blanked for a second there. But you bring up him having Zach Ertz, which is good to mention because DeAndre Hopkins is out. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but they talked about this during Monday Night Football, that since Zach Ertz has joined the team, he's got the most receiving yards for anybody on the Arizona Cardinals, which was pretty interesting. I didn't fact check that statement, but so with D-Hop being out, he could have a pretty good game this week. So that's just something to keep in mind. That something just came in my head when he reminded me about it.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how we play this week. As you said, we got the 4 running backs going. Injuries to guys like Elijah Moore and Calvin Ridley just being out because of his personal issues for most of the season have made me play those guys again and start the 4 running backs with their strong running backs. So it's not like a problem or anything. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Just like you're saying, if I get my normal guys going, I'll be cool, and I should be good for a win. I did want to talk about Antonio Gibson last week. He's been struggling with fumbles. I believe he has the most in the league, at least for running backs. So he's been struggling with that recently, and they pulled him for the most part this week after he fumbled in the 4th quarter, I believe. It was tough to see because they went on and scored, and Jonathan Williams, who honestly I've never heard of, scored a touchdown, which I knew could have been Antonio Gibson's pretty easily from the 1-yard line. So I'm just looking to hopefully see him secure the ball better and play better, and then just give him the full workload that he does deserve, athletic wise and talent wise. And also Jaden McKissick, I don't believe practiced today, so it's looking like he's going to be the fullback there, and as long as he keeps the ball in his hands, he should be good for that. But yeah, we can get into the next matchup we got. It's going to be the boa constrictors and Sean Sleepyhead. So this is the most lopsided matchup just because it's the 2nd seed and the 7th seed, with Sierra barely squeaking into the playoffs. But it still could be very competitive because of what Sierra's got on her team, just the firepower that could match up to Sean's team, even though she's been injured and still is injured now, losing Kareem Hunt. But we'll have to wait and see. Taysom Hill's a solid quarterback. I mean, he could go out and score 40 points realistically, especially with the matchup against Tampa Bay when it's going to be hopefully competitive.
If he doesn't throw 4 interceptions.
Yeah, but even if he does that, he could still score 30. So it doesn't matter,
He threw 4 picks and still had about 25 points because he had over 100 yards rushing in that game.
Right. So we'll have to see. And with Adams and Lockett, they could boom. Chubb could boom, being one of the only guys on that offense this week. It could help her out a lot. So we'll just have to wait and see. I'd probably pick Sean to win, but I'm looking for a good game between these two and hoping that Devontae Adams and Lockett and Chubb can kind of make it competitive for Sierra, and maybe Taysom Hill will score a couple of rushing touchdowns like he's been doing.
Yeah, so this is 2 versus 7 seed, like you were saying, and I kind of agree with the sense that Sierra's team is not as bad as it may look on paper, considering her record and all things with injuries, but I just don't see this going any way except for Sean's, unless we see, I mean, Cooper Kupp just have the worst week of the season. If we see it would have to be something pretty crazy. Like his last few games, he scored, let's see.
While you're looking that up, quick shout out to Sierra. She got her hot take right last week with Devontae Adams scoring over 25 points. So
that's true.
Shout out to her. So helped her get that win that she needed to get into the playoffs.
One of the few people who's gotten a win in hot takes this season. We'll get into that much later in the show, I should add.
Yeah, so he got 168 points last week, 169 points the week before. And then the outlier of those 3 weeks is he did have a 71-point week. So his team is doing crazy. But the 72-point week, he had, let's see. I'm trying to see.
I have it pulled up if you want me to.
Yeah, he had guys like Jamar Chase, Chris Godwin, and Aaron Jones all getting under 5 points. Jamar Chase had 5.4. So the only way we see him losing is a situation literally just like this, which I don't think it's going to happen. I think his team's pretty hot, and he's probably got the best chances of going all the way and winning it this year.
Yeah, and for sure, I think I'll just bring this up as a point. Although Aaron Jones, I think that week, he actually was a true game time decision against the Rams. So I wouldn't, if he was not playing much, it was because he was injured. But I mean, this team, Sean's team, is definitely the definition of boom or bust for sure. And we'll definitely have to see it this week. But I mean, just Sierra's team is just so injury riddled. It has been all year, but she's been able to, hold out, keep it strong. I mean, Devontae Adams has been the true MVP of her team all season. I think this will easily, she needs a miracle to win. She needs her team to show up in every facet, and for Sean's team to put up 71 points. That's, I think, what's going to come down to, but I'll take Sean for this one. So this would be all three of the higher seeds winning this week, a true 1, 2, 3, 4 playoff format for the semifinals. But that will conclude Girl Talk, unless you guys got anything to add. All right, and we'll head straight into Bourbon Bowl, where we'll bring in our special guest.
We're going to start our Bourbon Bowl segment. We're going to introduce our special guest, Matthew. He's my brother, so get him in here. He's not in our fantasy league, but he plays some fantasy leagues with his friends and stuff, so we'll have to get in and see what he's got. to say. So we're going to get in my Bourbon Bowl first, and Matthew's going to close us out in this segment. I'm going to talk about the Patriots-Colts game, which is on Saturday night. Since we don't have any college football this week, we're going to have Saturday games. I believe there's one during the day, which is the Browns. I'm not sure who they're playing, but the Browns play during the day. Langley, you got it?
I think it's the Raiders, if I remember correctly. I can double check.
All right. And then, the Patriots-Colts is going to be at night. So I'm just looking to watch. I got my man Jonathan Taylor playing, and I also have Damian Harris. Probably won't be starting him, but I wouldn't say you shouldn't. They have some good defenses, Colts and the Patriots. So it'll be interesting to see how they plan to stop both runs, because that's what both of these teams may basically live on, as we saw Mac Jones only throwing 3 passes the other night and them still getting a win against a good team. So I'm interested to see Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris against Jonathan Taylor and a little bit of Nyheim Hines. And we'll see how that plays out with the two defenses and how those running backs stack up against the competition. Payton, what you got?
Yeah. So, are you asking about that game in particular? Or? Okay.
Yeah. What you got on the Patriots game?
So, Colts and Patriots, they're actually, I would say both pretty good teams, and the Colts have definitely been exceeding my expectations this season, especially with Jonathan Taylor really having a breakout season. But I see the Patriots actually winning this game. I just think they've been playing pretty well, kind of hot right now. That's just my opinion. I don't know. They beat the Bills last week, Titans, Chargers. They've had some really good competitive games that they've won. So I think they'll squeak this one out. It'll probably be pretty close. I don't think it'll be a blowout by any means.
Yeah, I'm going to go Patriots on this one. I just think the Patriots are looking really good. And I think the Colts, they're still a good team, all things considered, but Patriots are really on the up and up. So I give it to them this week. And Matthew, what do you got?
For this week, I don't know. The Patriots are really hot right now, but I think the Colts are going to come in and they're going to take the win this week. Jonathan Taylor's going to go for over 100 yards.
3 touchdowns, baby.
2 touchdowns, not 3.
Oh, okay.
And I think they're going to get the passing game going early to put the Patriots off their feet a little bit. So I think the Colts are going to take it this week.
All right. Sounds good. Peyton, what you got for your Bourbon Bowl?
Yeah, so kind of going off of Jacobs, my game is going to be the Tennessee Titans versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think this game is going to be nearly as close as the other one. I think that the Titans are going to take the win on this one, and should be a fairly easy game. But also, with this kind of coinciding with with Jacobs' Bourbon Bowl, if Tennessee does win this game and the Colts lose, then Tennessee Titans will clinch playoff berth. So just to kind of throw in with my Bourbon Bowl, I think that Tennessee's going to win. I already said I thought that Indianapolis was going to lose and the Patriots were going to win. So I think we actually see the first team clinching playoff berth with the Tennessee Titans this weekend.
Yeah, so Titans, Steelers, I'm going to go Titans also. The little tandem of running backs have been pretty good in place of Derrick Henry. So they've been able to run the ball just like they want to, even though they don't have their receivers, and they're still winning. So I'll take the Titans. Matthew, what do you got?
Yeah, the Titans definitely. The Steelers suck, especially Ben Roethlisberger. He is old and stinky. So I think that the Titans are going to run through the Steelers this week, even with Najee Harris on the offensive side for them.
All right, Lang.
How do you know what Ben Roethlisberger smells like, if I may add?
I can smell him through the screen. I have a really in-tech TV.
Smell-o-vision. Nice. Smell-o-vision. Okay.
All right, Langley. Close us out with that one, and what's your Bourbon Bowl?
Yeah, I'm going Titans. I don't really have to explain much on that. I just think the Titans are the better team, and Steelers, No, they don't stand a chance. One of my boldest predictions, probably. I'm not even going to really go an explanation for it. Titans winning all the way. All right, so for my Bourbon Bowl, I'm going to go a little bit different this week. Usually I bring up one of the best games of the week. Instead, I thought we should celebrate the games that would be on the lower end of terms of importance this week. This, of course, is what I like to refer to as Tank Bowl. This is the Houston Texans versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. I know it's going to be the most exciting matchup of the season. Both teams are 2-11, although both have a win against a team that will most likely make the playoffs this year. Texans did beat the Titans, and the Jaguars did beat the Bills. Those were key matchups. And I mean, hey, we had said any team can win on any given Sunday, and well, this season's kind of proven it. But the Texans did beat the Jaguars earlier this year in Week 1, and personally, the Jacksonville Jaguars are literally a joke right now. I hate to say it, but like they have not looked sharp. Just more and more rumors and bad publicity stories are coming out of that organization by the day this past week. And I just don't think it's going to really help on the field for that matter as well. So I'm going to go Texans. It's a safe pick, and Jaguars fall to 2-12. Jacob, what do you got?
All right. I'm going to go Jags. Say James Robinson has a pretty good game against a pretty terrible defense and helps the Jaguars win. Put a little bit of light on that situation with Urban Meyer and such and make it a little bit more difficult for them to fire him after the season. Payton, what's yours?
I believe Davis Mills will bring his team to victory. Since he is the better quarterback in that quarterback room by far, I believe he brings victory to Houston, and not much else to say about that game. He wins.
All right, Matthew, in that game?
I'm going to go with the Texans because I think the whole butt kicking thing is just disgusting. And I think that the Jaguars have just been focused on that this whole week in practice, probably because it's been in the news and the media and all. So I think the Texans are going to come in. Brandon Cooks is going to play great, get a couple of passes, maybe a couple of touchdowns. And they're going to look great this week. But they're still not going to go to the playoffs. So
that's all right. All right, so what's your Bourbon Bowl?
My Bourbon Bowl this week is the Bengals and the Broncos, because for both of them, it's a very big game this week, especially if the Bengals want to have a chance of winning the division with the Ravens one game ahead of them, and if they want to make the playoffs at all. So my pick this week, it's going to be a close game in my opinion. I think that the Bengals are going to win it in the end by, who knows, a couple points maybe, because the Broncos have looked great this week. Their offensive running back scheme is doing well. Melvin Gordon's back this week, so I'm gonna pick the Bengals. What about you, Jake?
Yeah, so I'm gonna be tuning into this game, paying a lot of attention since I got Joe Mixon and Javonte Williams. So it's a big game for me, and they're facing off. I'm hoping for a competitive game to hopefully have both those guys getting a lot of work during the middle of the game. I'm gonna go Bengals. I just think they're more talented, and the quarterback battle is a pretty obvious one with Joe Burrow against Teddy Bridgewater. So I'll go Bengals this week. What you guys got?
I'm going to agree. The Cincinnati Bengals are going to win this week, and I think they realize that they got to go out there and what they got to do, and I think they're going to take advantage of Baltimore, who is right ahead of them. I think they're going to take advantage of Lamar possibly being out, and I think they know how important this one is to catch up to the Ravens and overcome them and win the division.
That's a spicy meatball.
All right, so hop into hot takes. Me and Jacob lost this past week, but Payton did win, so the tie has been broken. Payton is now 3-8. We're 2-9, but there's still some time left. Anything's possible, especially this late in the season. So my hot take, I'm going to go to the Saints and the Buccaneers Sunday Night Football. I have no hope for the Saints, really. The Bucs are probably going to beat us for the first time in the regular season since Tom Brady has arrived in Tampa Bay. But I still think the Saints defense can at least hold its own in keeping Tom Brady at bay. I think actually the Leonard Fournette, Ronald Jones, and any other running backs that might be on the team could have a pretty good game. I feel like they're going to just bounce around a lot so the defense gets gassed pretty quickly. I'm going to go with Tom Brady throws less than 3 touchdowns. 1 touchdown is good, 2 touchdowns good, but 3, no, not happening. Tom Brady throws less than 3 touchdowns. It might affect Sean's fantasy production, but I guess we'll see.
So my hot take this week is going to be that AJ Green scores 2 touchdowns. He's been playing pretty well. He's really stepped up in the Cardinals offense. And I think this is going to be a pretty good matchup for him. And I think that with D-Hop's absence, he steps up and gets 2 touchdowns this week. Not 1, not 3, not 0, not less than 2, but 2, because that's what that number means, 2.
All right. Let's get into mine. I'm going to pick Devontae Smith that is going to score more than 15 points in half PPR fantasy against the Washington football team this week. Washington football team's not been very good against pass catchers. And I think Devontae Smith, he's the only guy there. Jalen Hurts should be slinging it, trying to get some points. So we'll hope that Devontae Smith scores a lot of points. Matthew, what's your hot take?
My hot take this week is that Russell Wilson will score a rushing touchdown versus the Rams. All I can say is their passing game isn't the best, so I'm thinking that they're going to have some trick plays in this week, maybe around the goal line, and maybe some quarterback runs to get him in for my hot take and be 1-0 in all my hot takes this year.
Yeah, rushing touchdowns for quarterbacks help out with the fantasy points, so we'll have to wait and see, and maybe Matthew will be right and help out a few fantasy managers in the league. But that'll do us for the episode 12 of the All Love, All Hate Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you guys for coming. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and we'll see you again next week. Thank you, Matthew, for being here and hanging out with us and giving us your thoughts and all that kind of thing. We appreciate it for being a avid listener of the podcast and everything. But that's it. So I'm Jacob Reeder. We have with us Chris Langley and Payton Hedrick as our hosts, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in.